Luke was working alone in the quiet hangar on a small space station in the farthest corner of the galaxy. The stars outside were distant pinpricks of light, and the station, built to fix ships in deep space, was mostly empty.
Ow.
The only sounds were the hum of machines and the occasional clink of a tool in Luke's hands. It had been a slow day. Luke was almost done with his shift when the alarm blared. He glanced at the control panel, his heart skipping a beat. A ship had just crashed on the outskirts of the station.
Not again.
Luke muttered under his breath. The station had seen its share of accidents, but this was different. Decked. Had crashed, wasn't on the radar, and it wasn't sending any distress signals. It seemed like a stray vessel had drifted too, close to the station's gravity field and crash-landed. Luke quickly grabbed his tool belt, knowing he had no time to waste. He rushed out the door, pushing his way through the narrow hallway until he reached the docking bay. The hangar doors were open, and in the distance, he could see the wreckage of the ship, a sleek and alien design he had never seen before. It had clearly been damaged in the crash, its hull dented and torn. But then, something caught his attention. A figure, barely moving, lay beside the ship. It was an alien girl, her body half covered by wreckage, her skin a soft shade of green. That glowed faintly in the low light. Her eyes were closed and she was breathing shallowly, clearly hurt. Without hesitation, Luke rushed to her side. He checked her vitals. Her pulse was weak, but steady. She was alive, but just barely. He gently moved the wreckage off her body and lifted her into his arms. "Hey, can you hear me?" Luke said softly, hoping she would respond. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing bright blue irises that sparkled in the dim light. The alien girl blinked a few times, clearly confused. Then she looked up at Luke, her voice rough from exhaustion. "Help, please." Luke's heart raced, but he knew what he had to do. He didn't care what she was or where she came from. She needed help, and that was enough for him. He gently carried her inside the station and laid her on the nearest medical bed. Her injuries weren't too serious, but she had clearly been through a lot. Luke worked quickly, applying medical bandages and checking her wounds. Girl watched him intently, her eyes full of curiosity. "Who are you?" Luke asked, trying to break the silence. His voice was soft, but it was clear he was concerned. "I've never seen a ship like that before. What happened?" The girl's lips parted, but she didn't speak at first. Her voice was low and musical when she finally answered. "My name is Zara. My ship was attacked." Her words were slow, as if she was struggling to find the right ones. Luke nodded, still cleaning her wounds. "Attacked by who?" Zara closed, her eyes for a moment, pain flickering across her face. I do not know, but they destroyed my ship." Luke didn't press her further. Whatever had happened to Zara, it wasn't good, and he wasn't about to make her relive it. He finished treating her injuries and offered her a glass of water. Zara accepted it gratefully, drinking deeply before handing it back to him. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was still soft, but more steady now. Luke gave her a warm smile. "No problem. You're safe here." Zara's eyes locked with his, and for a moment, Luke felt something shift between them. It was hard to explain, but there was something about the way she looked at him, something he couldn't place. He felt a strange sense of connection, but he didn't know why. As he began to check the readings on the medical console, Zara slowly sat up, her movements graceful despite the pain. "You are kind," she said quietly. "Most would have left me to die." Luke frowned. "That's not the kind of person I am." Zara smiled faintly. It was a small smile, but it was enough to make Luke's heart race. There was something almost otherworldly about her, but it wasn't just her appearance. It was the way she carried herself, the quiet strength. In her eyes, she looked down at the wreckage of her ship through the hangar window. "You must help me fix it. I cannot stay here forever." Luke nodded, his hands on his hips. "I'll do what I can, but it's going to take some time." "You're lucky I was here when it happened." Zara's gaze shifted back to Luke. "You are more than just lucky," she said softly. "You are meant to help me." Luke gave her a confused look. "Meant to help you?" Zara's eyes glowed faintly as she leaned back against the bed, her voice soft, yet firm. Yes, you are the one who will fix my ship, and in doing so, you will belong to me. Luke blinked in surprise. He wasn't sure what she meant, but there was no mistaking the seriousness in her tone. Whatever connection they had just formed, it felt stronger than he expected. Belong to you? Luke repeated, his brow furrowing. I don't know what you mean by that, but I'm just here to help you fix your ship, nothing more. Zara's gaze didn't waver. We'll understand soon enough. The days that followed felt like a blur for Luke. After Zara's ship had crashed, she had stayed at the station, resting and recovering. Luke did everything he could to help her, fixing her ship and making sure she had everything she needed. But the more time they spent together, the more he began to notice something. Strange Zara was unlike anyone he had ever met. She had a quiet strength about her that made it impossible for Luke to ignore her presence. She never demanded anything, yet somehow she always seemed to get what she wanted. It was as if she had a way of making people do what she wanted without even asking. He spent hours working on her ship, studying its complex systems. It was nothing like any technology he had ever seen before. The ship's design was beautiful, but also foreign, with strange symbols and glowing patterns that seemed to shift and change depending on where you looked. Despite his best efforts, Luke wasn't sure if he could fix it in time. Zara, however, was patient. She watched him work, occasionally offering quiet advice, though her words were always cryptic. Sometimes she would stand close by, her presence so intense that it felt like the air around him was charged. You are making progress, she would say, her voice soft but full of confidence. Luke tried to brush off the odd feeling in his chest. Whenever she spoke like that, she had a way of making everything feel important, even the smallest tasks. As the days passed, he found himself thinking about her more than he should. But what confused him even more was what she had said that first day. After he had repaired her wounds and helped her to safety, "You will belong to me," Zara had told him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the station. Luke couldn't shake those words from his mind. He wasn't sure if she had meant it as some kind of cultural saying, or if she truly believed it. Either way, it made him feel uneasy. He wasn't the type to be owned by anyone, especially not someone he barely knew. Still, he didn't want to make things awkward, so he kept his focus on fixing the ship. As much as he didn't understand what Zara meant, he couldn't deny that he wanted to help her. She had been through a lot, and the least he could do was make sure she got back home. One evening, as Luke worked late into the night, Zara came into the hangar. The ship's repair had reached a crucial point, and Luke had been staring at the glowing console in front of him, trying to figure out the next step. He didn't notice her at first, but then he felt her eyes on him. He looked up to see her. Standing just a few feet away, Zara's eyes were intense, almost like she was looking into his very soul. There was a quiet calm in her presence, but also something deeper, something he couldn't quite explain. "You are close," she said softly, her voice carrying an edge of certainty. "But there is something missing." Luke frowned. "What? Do you mean I've checked everything?" "The power core is nearly fixed. All the circuits are aligned. What am I missing?" Zara stepped closer, her movements graceful and almost hypnotic. "You are missing the key to truly unlocking the power of this ship," she explained, her voice low and serious. "The ship is more than just metal and wires. It is alive in a way. It responds to the heart of its pilot." Luke raised an eyebrow. "Alive? I don't get it. You tell me the ship is sentient?" Zara smiled slightly, a knowing smile that sent a chill down Luke's spine. "In a way, the ship is connected to me, and now it is connected to you as well." Luke felt a knot form in his stomach. "Hey, what does that mean for me?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "It means that the bond between you and this ship is stronger than just fixing wires and circuits," Zara said, her eyes never leaving his. "You are part of its story now, and it is part of yours." Luke didn't know what to say. He had heard of alien ships with advanced technology, but he had never heard anything like this. Could the ship really be alive in some way? Did it mean for him, a simple human mechanic, to be connected to it? Before he could respond, Zara's voice softened. "I will help you unlock the final part of the ship's power," she said, stepping closer until she was right beside him. "But only if you accept your place." Luke swallowed. He wasn't sure if she was talking about the ship or S. Thing more personal. "I don't know what you mean by that," he said, feeling the confusion in his voice. "I'm just fixing your ship." "I'm not." Zara cut him off gently. "It is more than just a ship, Luke, and it is more than just a repair." She paused, and for a moment there was silence between them. "You belong to me now, whether you understand it or not." Luke didn't know how to respond. He wasn't sure if she was being serious or if this was just her culture's way of expressing gratitude. Either way, something deep inside him stirred, and for the first time, he realized just how complicated this situation had become. "I'll finish fixing your ship," he said, trying to focus on something he understood. "But the rest, figure out on my own." Zara's eyes softened. "You will come to understand in time, Luke," she said quietly. "You will see." The days after Zara's strange declaration were the most confusing for Luke. He focused on the repairs, hoping to avoid any awkward conversations with her. Every time they spoke, something about the way she looked at him made him feel uneasy. There was an intensity in her gaze that he couldn't explain, and it made him question everything he thought he knew. Zara was calm and patient as she observed his progress on the ship. She didn't rush him, never demanding anything beyond his help with the repairs. Yet, as the days passed, Luke began to feel like there was something more to this connection between them, something he couldn't shake. One evening, after working late on the ship's power core, Luke took a break to grab a drink from the station's small kitchen. He was tired, his hands still covered in grease and oil from the long hours he had spent fixing Zara's ship. As he walked back to the hangar, he noticed Zara standing near the hangar's large windows. Gazing out at the stars, her long green hair shimmered under the station's lights, and her eyes, which were usually soft, were now sharp and full of a quiet intensity. She turned to look at him as he entered, and there was something in her expression that made Luke's heart race. "You've been working so hard?" she said, her voice gentle, but filled with something more. "You were almost finished." "Just a few more adjustments." Luke nodded, not sure what to say. He didn't know if he should ask about her earlier words, but they had been on his mind constantly. "I've almost got the power core fixed. The wiring is a little tricky, but I'll manage." Zara took a step toward him, her gaze unwavering. "You are more than just a mechanic, Luke," she said softly. "You have been chosen for this. To fix the ship, to help me." Luke felt a strange tension build between them, the weight of her words pressing down on him. "I'm just doing what I can to help you," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "Nothing more." Zara didn't move. Instead, she stepped closer, her presence filling the room. "You are more than just a helper," she said again, her voice firm. "You are meant to be a part of this, part of the ship, part of me." Luke froze, his heart skipping a beat. "What are you talking about?" Zara reached out, gently placing a hand on his arm. Her touch was warm, and the feeling sent a shock through him. "You may not understand yet, but in time you will," she said, her voice low and almost hypnotic. "The ship recognizes you, just as I do." Luke pulled back slightly, unsure of what to make of her words. "I don't think I'm following you," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm just fixing your ship, that's all." Zara's eyes softened, and she let out a quiet sigh. "You do not understand yet, but you will in time. My ship is alive, Luke. It connects with its pilot, and now it is connected to you." Luke swallowed, his mind racing. "Just a mechanic," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I'm not a pilot. I don't belong to anyone." Zara's eyes flashed with something almost like amusement. "You are not just anyone, Luke. You have been chosen. By me, by the ship. The bond is already forming. It is inevitable." Luke took a step back, his mind struggling to keep up with the situation. "I'm not sure I'm ready for any of this," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I came here to help fix your ship, not get caught up in some bond. Zara looked at him, her expression softening. It is not something that can be rushed, Luke. The bond grows stronger over time. And when it is complete, you will see that this was meant to be. There was a long silence between them. Luke tried to make sense of what she was saying, but it didn't feel real. How could something like this just happen? He wasn't a part of her world. He wasn't ready for whatever connection she was talking about. But Zara seemed so sure, so confident. Her presence was overwhelming, and Luke couldn't help but be drawn to her. There was a force in her. Something he couldn't ignore, no matter how hard he tried. I still don't understand, Luke said, his voice heavy with confusion. Why me? Why did you choose me? Zara stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. Because you are strong, Luke. You may not see it now, but you have the strength to handle this bond. The ship sees it, I see it. And now you will see it. Too. Luke shook his head, feeling the weight of her words on his chest. He didn't know if he could accept this connection, this bond. He had his own life, his own goals. He wasn't ready to be someone's possession, even if Zara meant it in a way he didn't fully understand. But as Zara stood before him, her gaze steady and unyielding, Luke realized that he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her. Whatever this bond was, whatever it meant, it was already starting to take root. And deep down, he knew it would be impossible to ignore it forever. I'm just trying to help you, Luke said, his voice low. That's all I'm doing. I don't want any of this. Bonzar's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. You will, Luke. In time, you will. Luke couldn't stop thinking about Zara's words. No matter how hard he tried, they lingered in his mind. You belong to me. What did that even mean? He had helped her, fixed her ship, and now she kept talking about a bond one he didn't understand, one he certainly didn't feel ready for. Every time she looked at him, her blue eyes seemed to see through him. There was a power in her gaze that he couldn't deny. But still, Luke wasn't sure if he was ready for whatever this was between them. She seemed to think they were connected in some deep way, but he wasn't sure he felt the same. He was just a guy who worked on ships. Nothing special, but Zara seemed so sure. She spoke about their connection as if it was already established, as if it was fate. As days passed, Luke couldn't ignore the subtle changes that began to happen. He started noticing how Zara's presence made the air feel thicker, heavier. Every time she entered the room, it was as if the world shifted just a little bit. Wasn't just her presence, though. There were other things, too. When he worked on her ship, it was as if he could feel something guiding him. It was strange, like the ship was responding to him in ways he couldn't explain. Sometimes, when he fixed a part or adjusted a wire, there was a quiet hum, most like the ship was happy with his work. Zara watched him every step of the way, her eyes never leaving him. She would smile when he made progress, nodding as if she expected it all along. You're getting close, Luke, she would say softly. The ship is responding to you. It's only a matter of time. Luke didn't know how to explain it, but he began to feel it too. The bond she spoke of, the one that was supposed to be between them, was starting to grow. It wasn't just the ship. It was something in the air, something unspoken that seemed to connect him to Zara more than he could understand. One evening, after another long day of work, Luke was wiping his hands off when Zara approached him. She didn't say anything at first, just stood next to him, her gaze fixed on the ship. He could feel her close presence, the weight of her attention on him. You've done well, Zara said, her voice soft, almost affectionate. Luke didn't look at her right away. I'm just doing my job, fixing the ship, he said, trying to sound casual. But even as he said it, he couldn't ignore the way his heart was racing. Something about her made it impossible to stay calm. Zara stepped a little closer, just enough for Luke to feel the warmth radiating from her. It's not just about fixing the ship, Luke. It's about more than that. It's about us. Luke finally turned to look at her. U.S. I don't understand what you mean. I'm helping you fix your ship. That's all I'm doing. Zara smiled. The kind of smile that made Luke's chest tighten. It's not just the ship. The ship is a part of me, and now it is a part of you. Do you feel it? The connection? Luke frowned, unsure of what she meant. I don't know. I don't know what to feel. Zara's smile softened, and she took a step back, her gaze thoughtful. It's okay. You don't need to understand it all right now. The bond between us is growing, and you will feel it more. Each day, I know it's strange for you, but in time, you will come to understand. Luke didn't say anything at first. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, but he couldn't make sense of them. He didn't know if he was ready for whatever this was. But every time he looked at Zara, he felt a pull. It wasn't just physical. It was something deeper, something he didn't know how to explain. He wanted to push it all away, to go back. To his normal life, to the simple work of fixing ships. But something inside him told him that wasn't possible. Zara wasn't just any alien. She was different. Somehow he was starting to believe that his life would never be the same again. Over the next few days, the bond grew stronger. Zara's presence felt like it was everywhere. Even when she wasn't in the room, Luke felt her. It was like she had planted herself in his mind, her thoughts mingling with his. Couldn't escape. Her and part of him didn't want to. There was something comforting about the connection, even though it scared him. The work on her ship was almost done. The last pieces were falling into place, and soon it would be ready to fly again. Luke could feel a strange sense of completion, like his work was more than just fixing a machine. It was a part of something bigger, something he wasn't fully understanding yet. Zara seemed to sense his hesitation. One evening, as they worked side by side, she spoke again, her voice soft and knowing. You've done so much, Luke. You've helped me in ways you don't even realize. Luke looked up at her, his mind swirling. I've just been fixing. Your ship, he said, unsure of what she meant. That's all. Zara's eyes softened, and she placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle. It's not just the ship, Luke. It's about us. And I need you to understand. You belong with me now. You have always been meant to be here, with me. Luke stood still, the weight of her words sinking in. Part of him wanted to protest, to argue that he didn't belong to anyone, another. Part of him, the part that had been growing since he first laid eyes on her, knew the truth. He was already a part of her world. And no matter how much he fought it, he could feel himself being drawn deeper into it as the ship's repairs neared completion. Luke found himself caught between two worlds, the one he knew and the strange uncharted territory that Zara had led him into. The bond she spoke of had grown stronger, and even though he tried to resist, he couldn't ignore it. Zara's presence felt like a constant pull, drawing him deeper into her world. But as the days passed, Luke couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. There was a tension in the air, a sense that something bigger was coming. Zara had been talking more about her home and the people she had left behind. She had mentioned her enemies' alien factions who wanted to control her people and their technology. Luke had assumed it was just a distant worry, something that didn't concern him, but he was wrong. One evening, as they sat in the hangar, going over the final details of the ship's repairs, Zara's tone shifted. She seemed tense, her eyes darting to the ship's communication console every few moments. Zara, Luke asked, his voice soft. What's wrong? Looked at him, her face serious. We are being watched, she said quietly. The factions I've told you about, they have found me. They know I'm here, and they want what's mine. Luke frowned. What do you mean, they want your ship? Zara shook her head. Not just the ship. They want me. They want to control me, and they think they can use you against me. Luke felt a chill run down his spine. Why me? I'm just a mechanic. I'm not involved in any of this. Zara's gaze softened, but there was still a fierce determination in her eyes. They believe that if they take you, I will do as they command. They do not understand that our bond cannot be broken, no matter what they do. Luke's mind raced. He had never imagined that helping Zara would put him in the middle of a galactic conflict. But now, he couldn't ignore the reality of the situation. He wasn't just fixing a ship anymore. He was part of something much larger, something he didn't fully understand. They'll come for us, Zara said, her voice filled with resolve. But I won't let them take you. I won't let anyone separate us. Luke didn't know how to respond. He was scared, but he also felt a strange sense of purpose. He wasn't the same person who had first met Zara on the wrecked ship. Something inside him had changed, and he knew that he couldn't just walk away now. "Zara, what do we do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear building inside him. Zara reached out and took his hand. "We prepare, we fight." Over the next few days, the tension only grew. Luke and Zara worked together to make sure her ship was ready for whatever came next. But as they worked, they were constantly on edge, knowing that the enemies Zara had spoken of were getting closer. The first sign of trouble came one night, when the station's alarms went off. Luke and Zara rushed to the control room, where they saw ships on the Radaralian warships closing in on the station. Zara's face hardened as she studied the readout. "They are here," she whispered. Luke felt his heart race as the warships neared. "What do we do now?" he asked. Zara's voice was calm, but there was a fierceness in her eyes. "We fight, and we take control of the ship and we leave. They won't be able to stop us." Luke nodded, trying to steady his nerves. He didn't know if he was ready for a battle, but he knew that Zara needed him. They weren't just fighting for her ship anymore. They were fighting for their lives, and for something deeper than either of them fully understood. As the alien ships grew closer, Zara led Luke to the ship's control room. He followed her, heart pounding in his chest. She was ready, but he wasn't sure he was. He had never been in a fight like this before. He was just a mechanic, he wasn't a soldier. But Zara was right. They were in this together now. Once inside the control room, Zara quickly began to work, activating the ship's systems. Luke stood by, watching as the ship hummed to life. The powerful engines roared, and the lights inside flickered on. Zara looked at Luke, her eyes filled with determination. "Get ready," she said. "It's time to show them what we're made of." Luke nodded, swallowing his fear. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew he had to be ready. This wasn't just about fixing a ship anymore. This was about surviving. This was about standing with Zara, his partner, and fighting against the galaxy's enemies. As the ship's weapon systems powered up, Luke couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The ship wasn't just a machine, it was a living force, and it responded to them both. He could feel the power of the ship flowing through him, strange connection between him and the vessel that Zara had called home. "Stay close," Zara said, her voice low. "We fight together." Luke stood beside her, his heart racing as the ship powered up. The alien warships were getting closer, their weapon systems charging, but Zara was ready. So was he. They had no choice but to fight, and as the first shot was fired from the enemy ships, Luke knew that everything was about to change. The battle had ended, and the silence in the hangar was deafening. Luke and Zara sat in the control room, surrounded by the humming sound of the ship's systems as they slowly powered down. It was over. The enemy ships had been destroyed, and for now they were safe. Luke let out a breath he hadn't realized. He'd been holding, his hands were still shaking, but he felt a sense of relief wash over him. They had won. They had fought together, and they had made it through. But as the adrenaline began to fade, Luke realized something deeper. Something had changed inside him. Zara, who had been focused on the ship's status, finally turned to him. Her eyes softened when she saw the exhaustion on his face. She walked over, her movements graceful, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did well, Luke," she said quietly. "We made it through because of you." Luke met her gaze, feeling a warmth spread through him at her words. She had always been strong, always in control. But in that moment, Luke realized just how much they had become a team. She wasn't just the alien girl with the ship. She was someone he had fought for. Someone he had come to care about deeply. "I don't know if I was ready for all of this," Luke said, his voice quieter than usual. "I never imagined I'd be caught up in a battle like this. But I couldn't have done it without you." Zara smiled, a soft and knowing smile. "You didn't need to be ready. You were always meant to be here, to help me, to fight with me." Luke looked at her, his mind racing. He didn't fully understand everything she had said about their bond, but something inside him told him that it was real. There was a connection between them, something deeper than just fixing a ship. He felt it every time she looked at him. Every time they worked together, it was as if they had always been meant to cross paths. What happens now? Luke asked, his voice uncertain. He'd never expected to be part of something like this, part of a galactic conflict, a part of Zara's world. But now the ship was repaired. The battle was over. The future was uncertain. Zara stepped closer, her hand still on his shoulder. Now we move forward, she said, her voice steady. You've helped me, you've protected me, and now we are free. Luke raised an eyebrow. Free, he repeated. But what about the rest of the galaxy? What about the factions you told me about? Zara's gaze grew distant, her eyes thoughtful. The fight may not be over, she admitted. But for now, we've won. We've proven that we are stronger together. And together, we will face whatever comes next. Luke felt a sense of resolve settle in his chest. For the first time since meeting Zara, he felt like he wasn't just along for the ride. He was part of something bigger, a part of her world, part of the journey that lay ahead. He looked around the control room at the ship that had brought them together. It wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a symbol of everything they had been through, everything they had fought for, and now it was ready to carry them forward. So, what's next for us? Luke asked, his voice more confident than before. Zara's eyes met his, and there was a spark of excitement in her gaze. Next, we explore. We see the galaxy. We make our own path. Together.
Oh.
Luke couldn't help but smile. Despite the fear, the uncertainty, and the battles they had fought, there was something exciting about the unknown. The thought of exploring the stars with Zara, of seeing the galaxy through her eyes, filled him with a sense of adventure he hadn't expected. Together, he repeated. It felt right. Zara nodded, her expression softening. Yes, together. As they stood side by side, looking out at the vastness of space, Luke realized that everything had changed. He had come to this station to fix a ship, to do his job. But now, he was part of something greater. He was part of Zara's world, and she was part of his. They had fought together, survived together, and now they would face whatever came next together. Luke didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt ready to face it. With Zara by his side, he knew they could overcome anything. And so, as the ship powered up and the stars stretched out before them, Luke and Zara embarked on a new journey, one that would take them across the galaxy, together, as partners, as a team. The battle was nothing like Luke had ever imagined. He had worked on ships for years, fixing broken engines and repairing faulty circuits. But he had never expected to be fighting for his life, much less in the middle of a galactic war. Zara stood beside him, calm and focused, as the ship's weapons systems powered up. The ship was alive, responding to their commands as if it had a mind of its own. Hold on tight, Zara said, her voice steady, but her eyes sharp with determination. Luke braced himself against the control console as the ship's engines roared to life. The first wave of enemy ships loomed on the radar, and Luke could feel his pulse quicken. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight to protect everything he had come to care about. Zara, her ship, and the strange connection that had formed between them. The first shot rang out as Zara fired the ship's main weapon. The blast hit the enemy ship dead center, causing a massive explosion. Luke flinched at the force of it, but Zara's hands never wavered on the controls. She was in complete control, and Luke couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at how effortlessly she commanded the ship. "They'll be back," Zara said, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. "We need to move quickly." Luke nodded, trying to stay focused. He wasn't used to this kind of combat, but he knew that he couldn't afford to freeze up. The enemy ships were regrouping, and more blasts filled the air as the battle intensified. He glanced at Zara, who was now operating the ship's weapon systems with expert precision. "You're doing great," Luke said, trying to offer some reassurance. Zara didn't respond right away. Her eyes were fixed on the control panels, but Luke saw a small smile play at the corner of her lips. "I'm not doing this alone, Luke," she said quietly. "You're a part of this now, too." Her words caught him off guard. He had always seen himself as just a mechanic, just someone fixing things. But here he was, fighting beside Zara, part of something bigger than himself. The bond she spoke of, the one that had seemed so strange to him at first, was becoming real. He could feel it in the way the ship responded to his every movement, the way Zara's presence filled the room with energy. They were a team now, and Luke realized, for the first time, that he wasn't just helping her fix her ship. He was helping her fight for her freedom. The battle raged on for hours, and the enemy ships seemed endless. Every time one was destroyed, another would appear. But Zara and Luke held their ground. With each blast, Luke felt his confidence grow. He wasn't just a passenger anymore. He was an active part of the battle, doing his part to protect the ship, to protect Zara, in the midst of the chaos. Luke found himself thinking about what Zara had said earlier, that he belonged with her, that they were connected in some way. At first, the idea had seemed impossible, even absurd. But now, in the heat of battle, it felt more like a truth. The bond they shared wasn't something he could deny. He had become a part of her world, and she a part of his. They were fighting. Together, side by side, in a way that felt almost natural. As another enemy ship approached, Zara's fingers flew across the controls, launching another wave of energy blasts. The enemy ship didn't stand a chance, but just as they thought they had won, a new ship appeared on the radar. This one was bigger, more heavily armed, and it was coming straight for them. Zara's expression hardened as she studied the approaching ship. This is it. We need to take it down before it reaches us. Luke could see the tension in her shoulders, the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but there was no hesitation in her movements. She was ready, and he was ready to stand by her. Do you think we can take it? Luke asked, his voice steady despite the danger. Zara met his gaze, her eyes filled with determination. We have to. Luke's heart pounded as the massive enemy ship loomed closer, its weapons charging. He had no idea if they could win this fight, but he knew one thing. He wouldn't let Zara face this alone. They'd come this far together, and now they were in this together. The battle began again, this time more intense than ever. The larger ship fired first, sending blasts of energy crashing against the shields of Zara's ship. The force of the impact rocked them both, and Luke could feel the ship's systems struggling to keep up. But Zara didn't falter. She worked the controls with a level of precision that amazed him. We need to target their weak spots, Zara said, her voice focused. I've marked the areas we need to hit. Luke quickly followed her instructions, adjusting the targeting systems. He fired, and with a powerful blast, they hit the enemy ship's weak spot. The ship shuddered, and for a moment Luke thought they might have won. But the enemy ship wasn't done yet. It fired again, and this time, the blast hit their ship's outer hull. Sparks flew from the control panels, and the lights flickered. Luke's heart raced as he looked at Zara, who was still calm, still in control. Stay with me, Luke, Zara said, her eyes locked on his. We're not done yet. Luke nodded, pushing the fear aside. He didn't have time for doubt. They were close to winning. They had to be. With one final shot, they hit the enemy ship's core. The explosion lit up the darkness of space, and the enemy ship was no more. They had won. Zara let out a breath of relief, her hands falling from the controls. Luke leaned back in his seat, trying to catch his breath. It was over. For now, you did it, Luke said, his voice filled with awe. Zara smiled, her eyes softening. We did it.